You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
This month's Centresteer podcast is sponsored by Commonwealth Classics. Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic vehicles from Europe and South America and has a rotating collection of rare and unique Land Rovers. Their showroom is located in Virginia, just 45 minutes west of Washington, D.C. Visit www.cwclassics.com to view their inventory of classic vehicles and follow them on Instagram at Commonwealth_Classics. Thank you, Commonwealth Classics, for your continued support of the podcast.
The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners.
Welcome to the Centresteer Podcast, podcast number 94 for January 2021. This is the first Land Rover podcast on the planet. Centresteer is a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners. I'm your host, John Costage. Joining me via Zoom, Harold, Morgan, and Dixon. Welcome to 2021, gentlemen.
Good day. Good year.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Our guest this month is Therese-Marie Becker. She managed marketing for the Last Overland. She talks to us about how she got involved with the Last Overland and recounts her part of the adventure, including being behind the wheel of Oxford, border crossings, and eating yak. I think she's the first one that I know of who I know have ever known as eaten yak.
Yak and homemade vodka.
As always, thanks for your comments, likes, follows on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and email. Podcast is available on YouTube under the account Centresteer Podcast. And you may recall last month that Jimmy Poindexter sent us a voicemail and he got a t-shirt out of the deal. And he has followed up with his voicemail. He was looking to buy a Discovery and he did do that. He said he bit the bullet and found a 1996 Discovery. It needs a lot of TLC. However, it's solid and has only a little rust. He drove it 100 miles and he's also now joined Rove. Hopefully we will get to meet at Mar and I'll have finished the build and have it there. Thanks again for all of you helping me out. Take care and stay safe. So good for you, Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm sure it needs a fair amount of TLC because they only needed some TLC when they were new.
I think Mar looks like a good possibility to be able to travel finally in October. So hopefully that'll happen. And
assuming he has his truck done by then. Because, all you got to do is this and all you got to do is that. And that'll only take a couple weeks. Year and a half later, you're still doing it.
If you've been following Oxford in America, enjoying our interviews with figures in the Overland community and liking our coverage of most things Land Rover, please consider supporting the show. You can be a regular podcast supporter through Patreon, be a one-time supporter through Buy Me a Tea, or show off your support by purchasing a t-shirt or sticker. Visit the website centresteer.com for all the details. And I remind you, we have a voicemail feature on the website. You can record your comment or question, enter your name, email, and send it in. And that's what Jimmy did with us. And I think we have one more t-shirt to go.
Did Jimmy's follow-up come as a voicemail also, or is this an email?
No, he did an email follow-up.
Okay. So no second shirt for Jimmy.
That's correct. Yes. If you've not been listening to the end of the podcast, you've been missing your opportunity to get a free t-shirt by leaving a voicemail. So details at the end of the show. And before we get into the news, we would like to take note of the passing of Land Rover enthusiasts over the past few months.
Well, the first person we should probably mention is Michael Sisson, pardon my pronunciation there. He was a Gulf Coast Land Rover Club enthusiast out of Mobile, Alabama, and was a great Land Rover enthusiast and well known down in the South. From a standpoint in the eastern part of North America, I can think of three people that passed away that some listeners may know about or have affected some of the listeners in a positive way. The first I would mention is Dave Meadows. While relatively unknown outside of Ottawa Valley Land Rover, Dave was a Series 2A owner and amateur radio enthusiast. And while he was OVLR's secretary-treasurer, he became the treasurer of ANARC, the joint organization that brought Bay State Rover Owners Association, the Massachusetts Club, Rover Owners of Virginia, and the Ottawa Valley together to put on the big 50th anniversary rally at Greek Peak. Without him, it probably would not have been as big a success as it was. The second I would mention is Vern Fairhead. Vern created the second longest or oldest continuously running Land Rover rally in the hemisphere. The Maple Syrup Rally was always a good start to the Land Rover season up here and was actually quite unique. And the last is Michael Liodisi. Mike was a character and well known at East Coast events with his Series 2A and Pipe. Mike had a great and subtle sense of humor and was one of the early people on the Land Rover owners list on the internet.
I remember the Pipe.
Oh, yes.
And a big floppy hat, too, as I recall.
Yep. And he usually would show up at about 5 a.m. with his speakers blaring bagpipe music. Well, Mike was very knowledgeable about Land Rovers, very helpful, and he actually worked for LRNA for many years until they moved their headquarters up to New Jersey.
And now for the news. Jaguar Land Rover's retail sales continue recovery. So JLR marked the end of 2020 with a second successive quarter-on-quarter recovery in sales despite continuing COVID impact. Retail sales for the quarter ending in December were 128,469 vehicles, 13.1% higher than the 113,569 vehicles sold in the preceding quarter. I laugh just because, hearing the numbers, but down 9% on the same period last year. China sales were particularly encouraging, up 20%. on the prior quarter, 19% year on year. Retail sales in most other regions also continue to recover. We're up significantly on the prior quarter in North America, 31.7%, 26.6% overseas, which is where the sub-Saharan Africa markets contribute. Europe was up 20.5%. However, sales in other regions have not recovered to their pre-COVID levels for the year. North America was down 17%, overseas was down 20%, Europe down 16%, the UK was down almost 9%. The sales ramp up of the new Defender saw rising to 16,286 vehicles in October to December quarter, which is 66% increase over the preceding quarter. For Jaguar, retail sales of the multi-award-winning all-electric I-Pace were up 69.3% year-on-year, with 7,807 sold in the quarter. And for calendar year 2020, JLR retail sales were 425,974 vehicles, down almost 24% from 2019. Just a kind of an overview of JLR for the year. Things seem to be recovering. Some specifics. This article was talking about JLR, but they included the Chery Automobile JLR. Is it a subsidiary? Is it a working together? I'm not sure what to call it.
I believe the term is joint venture.
Joint venture. Thank you, Harold. It looks like they sold 17,078 units in the last quarter, from the way I read this article. Another article broke out electric and electrification vehicles. Specifically, the company announced its quarter 4 sales amounted to 128,000, almost 500 vehicles, and 11.6% of that number falls on plug-ins. Specifically, BEVs, 6.1% share. PHEVs were 5.5% and MHEVs were 41.4% of the sales. What's a BEV? I don't recall hearing that.
Battery electric vehicle.
So that would be like the I-Pace.
That'd be like a Tesla, really. It's a full electric vehicle. There is no engine on board to provide any power whatsoever.
Right.
P is partial.
No, P is plug-in hybrid.
P is plug-in hybrid. M is
the mild hybrid.
Mild hybrid, which means it has an onboard electric engine to charge a battery.
Well, no, that's the plug-in hybrid. The plug-in hybrid is an electric vehicle with an engine to charge the battery. The mild hybrid is the electric booster motor on a internally combusted vehicle. Mild hybrid, mild meaning, there's very little electric assist. It's primarily an engine-powered vehicle.
The mild means that the electric is a boost, as you said, or an assist.
Right.
Plug-in is mainly electric, and the internal combustion would provide a boost.
Well, yeah, it provides actually charging for the batteries. It provides because you can plug it into the wall and charge it up, and it's an electric vehicle. But if you use up those batteries, then you can fire up the engine to recharge them.
Then some specific on the new Defender in America. In the U.S., demand for Land Rover's all-new off-roader have been very high. Deliveries started later than planned last year, but despite this, the new Defender has already outsold its predecessor in America. During the 1990s, Land Rover sold 6,913 examples of the old Defender to U.S. customers until it was discontinued in 1997 after being on sale for 7 years.
Yeah, interesting math there.
In contrast, Automotive News has learned that JLR sold 9,115 examples of the new redesigned Defender 110 in the U.S. from June to December of last year.
Well, we should make clear also that in 1993, we were only allowed to bring 500 of them in, or we might have sold more.
Might have.
The 110s sold well, and they continue to sell well. Those things have fetch ridiculous numbers now.
Even the 90s do.
Yeah, some of them sat on the lot, I believe, long after 97 passed. Yeah,
well, I think the 90s sat on the lots, but I don't think too many of the 110s did.
They didn't sell that well in Canada. A bunch of ours went south. The 90s did languish a bit.
The comparison here is that 6 months compared to 6-7 years.
Oh,
the new Defender already sold 3,000 more.
Right.
It has done very well.
Yeah.
And during COVID times. So
Jaguar news. And yes, I'm pulling this out because it's a cool car. This is for Harold too. A rare example of a Jaguar supercar, which was once the fastest road car on the planet, is up for sale. The Jaguar XJ220 is being sold on eBay with an asking price of £425,000. The 1990 supercar had a checkered history before making it into production, but models are highly sought after by collectors now. The 1995 XJ220 on the market is part of a UK collection and is being sold by a specialist dealer based in Buckinghamshire. The vehicle has just 11,000 miles on the clock.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
425,000 pounds.
Oh yeah, they bring some money. They weren't cheap when they were new, but they've because they only made 200 of them. They are collectible, and so they hold their value. Just imagine what that could have been if they've been allowed to build the 12-cylinder that they wanted for that.
It was a 6-cylinder in there, is that right? Supercharged?
Yeah. But they had originally planned a big 12, but budget being what it was.
And JLR workers redeployed after surge in COVID cases. So workers at the JLR's giant Castle Bromwich factory have been redeployed to the Solihull site, where a surge in COVID cases has left hundreds of workers off sick or isolating. Employees have been temporarily transferred to the Load Lane site to help meet demand for vehicles after a rise in staff absences owing to coronavirus. Production has allegedly been suspended on the XE and XF models at the Castle Bromwich car giant, while the workforce has been shifted to Solihull. Wasn't the XF and the XE already kind of on the outs?
Good excuse.
And we talked about this last month, but some more specific details this month. Land Rover Defender wins latest 5-star award. This time, the award comes from the safety experts at Euro NCAP. Following the latest round of test results, the new Defender scored 85% for adult and child occupant protection, 79% for safety assist, and achieved a 71% score for vulnerable road users on its way to a 5-star rating. Following was world premiere at the Frankfurt Motor Show in '99, Land Rover Defender's already won 28 international awards.
Yeah, it's hard for a vehicle like the Defender to score well for vulnerable pedestrians, and they will do some damage.
Designer Gerry McGovern appointed to Jaguar Land Rover board. Professor Gerry McGovern, Chief Creative Officer at JLR, has been appointed to the company's board of management. In his new capacity as a member of the board, McGovern will oversee creative direction for both the Jaguar and Land Rover brands in a move that the company says emphasizes the vital importance of creativity to the ongoing prosperity of Jaguar Land Rover. Oh, is a quote from JLR CEO Thierry Bolloré. Also, to continue to elevate and protect our two great brands, Gerry's role will now include creative direction across all of Jaguar and Land Rover's global visual communications, ensuring a consistent look and feel befitting each of their distinctive characters, unquote.
So I guess the Jags are going to start to look like Range Rovers too.
I think they will.
There's a possibility that maybe if he's being kicked upstairs, so to speak, that he might be a little more hands-off and maybe...
Well, but they just said he's going to be responsible for the look and feel, so...
Putting on an olive branch, Harold, see if there's...
on the other hand, if the Jaguar starts selling better, then, I guess I can forgive a little bit of that. But I don't have to like it, but I can look the other way if it actually does improve the sales.
In the UK, Board of Management, is that the same as the Board of Directors here in the US?
Yes.
Not Land Rover related, but important nonetheless. Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot shareholders vote to merge, creating world's fourth largest car maker. By overwhelming margin, shareholders of both Fiat Chrysler Automobiles and Peugeot parent group PSA approved a $58 billion merger, creating the world's fourth largest automaker, Stellantis, Stellantis.
I think they should call the company Oh No. It just sounds like such a scary combination.
There could be significant pressure to dump some of the new company's weaker brands, including FCA's namesake Fiat and Chrysler. And I think an analyst here's quote said, Stellantis will be sort of conglomerate of brands, some great, some not so good, and most very regional, says Jefferies analyst. The list also includes Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Maserati, Alfa Romeo on the Fiat Chrysler side, as well as Peugeot, Citroën, DS, Opel, and Vauxhall on the other side. The merger will be a good opportunity for a reset, said the Jefferies analyst. Later in the article here, unexpectedly Manley, who I think is CEO, announced yet another deal months later, this one with Renault's arch-rival Peugeot. Ties between Chrysler and Peugeot stretch back for decades, and industry analysts saw plenty of synergies in the deal. For one thing, the two automakers each have gaps in their lineup the other can fill. The same is true for a geographic perspective. PSA, for example, has been looking for ways to re-enter the U.S. market after a 3-decade absence, but it is strong in China, where Fiat Chrysler has only a modest presence. As we know, Fiat Chrysler has the Jeep brand. I don't know what percentage they are of selling of the Stellantis.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about Chrysler's ability to produce some really stellar products, but get themselves into serious trouble financially, coupled with Peugeot's ability to build stellar product and then just decide to build crap for no reason after that.
Welcome, Stellantis.
Well, maybe the Jeeps will get the Peugeot's electrical systems with all those relays and so on.
Oh, that should be fun. And some Fiat wiring to flesh it out.
Speaking of Jeep, Jeep's luxurious new Grand Cherokee has Land Rover in its sights. Jeep has unveiled its 5th-generation Grand Cherokee, and there's no doubt that the automaker has a certain British SUV in its sights. This is from Rob Report. The Grand Cherokee L that will appeal to luxury car drivers. Designed with an extended wheelbase, model features 3 rows of plush seats capable of carrying 7 and a spate of high-end features. I'm not going to read all of it. I'll just read bits of it here. Under the hood, the base model is fitted with a 3.6-liter naturally aspirated Pentastar V6 that delivers 290 horsepower, 257 pound-feet of torque. Opt for either the Overland or Summit trims, and you'll upgrade to a 5.7-liter naturally aspirated V8 that can turn out 357 horses, 395 pound-feet of torque. Whichever engine you pick, power is sent to the wheels via an 8-speed automatic transmission. When it comes to handling, the ride features an all-new air suspension with adjustable shocks that can continuously adapt to road conditions as well as driving styles. This works in tandem with 5 different terrain modes to adjust to weather and road conditions. The new model will be available with 3 4x4 systems dubbed Quadra Track, plus a new front axle disconnect. Basically, if the Cherokee determines that conditions do not require all-wheel drive, the front axle disconnects automatically and the car reverts to 2-wheel drive in order to improve fuel efficiency. 4-wheel drive automatically re-engages when required. The Jeep Grand Cherokee L is slated to go on sale this spring and is expected to be priced at around, for this luxury automobile, with all that I just read, $40,000 US.
Wow.
Oh, if they can deliver quality at that price level, they might have something. I want to know if they're still going to make the Trackhawk version. That thing was so cool.
I did have to chuckle as I was reading this article, and it's Rob Report taking on Land Rover, and this supposedly luxurious model is less than any Land Rover retails at the moment.
Well, I mean, if you're going to take them on, right? That's one place if you can build the same stuff for less money, that's a big thing.
And another off Land Rover note, the 2021 Cadillac Escalade Diesel first drive. This was from CNET and Roadshow. The new Cadillac Escalade is very good. General Motors' new Duramax inline 6 diesel engine is also very good. Combine the two, and what do you know? The diesel-powered Escalade is very, very good. Adding the diesel engine only heightens the super luxe experience. It's quiet, smooth, and powerful, lending itself nicely to the Escalade's large and in-charge demeanor. The diesel power plant in question is the 3-liter Duramax i6 you'll find in GM's full-size SUVs and trucks. Everything from the Tahoe to the Suburban and the Sierra GMC Sierra. The engine makes 277 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, which moves the 3-ton Escalade with authority. The 460 pound-feet number matches that of Cadillac's other engine choices, GM 6.2-liter small-block gas V8, but thanks to the diesel's way down low power delivery characteristics, you can dip into the engine's full throttle at just 1,500 RPM rather than revving it up to 4,100 RPM for the V8.
Hence the point of having a diesel.
A 10-speed automatic transmission handles shifting duties. All told, the EPA says a rear-wheel drive Escalade with a 3-liter diesel should return 21 miles per gallon in the city, 23 combined. It's a big improvement over the V8's 15 and 17 combined. Diesel, of course, slightly more expensive here in the U.S. And finally, the Duramax 3-liter i6 is a no-cost option. It can be had with a 2 or 4-door drive, with 2 or 4-wheel drive, and it's available on all of the Escalade's trims from the $77,490 luxury, that's a trim level luxury, to the $100,001 Sport Platinum Escalade.
Well, the zero cost option sounds like a really good deal because the diesel, of course, is going to last longer and the vehicle will hold its value. So just from a resale standpoint, you'd be stupid not to get the diesel.
And I brought that up because, Land Rover is not bringing a diesel back to the U.S. and for a number of reasons they've said like it's not going to sell and they don't want to do it or whatever reason. But here we are in the Escalade in their wheelhouse. Here in the US.
I think it would sell. I just don't think they'd sell enough to pay for the cost of federalizing it.
And some breaking news, literally breaking news on the podcast as we were going to record this. News came out, a headline, General Motors said it planned to phase out gasoline-powered cars and trucks and sell only vehicles that had zero emissions by 2035.
Well, they have 14 more years to make some money.
I guess we'll have to add it to the list. Now, instead of it being states, countries, or cities, now we have companies.
Well, there was a time when General Motors was bigger economic power than Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Still world's largest automaker, I believe.
No, Toyota. I think Volkswagen Audi Group is bigger too. It depends. It bounces back and forth. If you look at the stats over the last many years.
And of course, interestingly, as General Motors shed some brands too, and they're still up there. The Vauxhall and
right.
Are they closing down Holden in Australia?
Yes.
Yeah. Sadly, it was one of their best brands.
Agreed.
All the cool stuff that we got General Motors wise was all Holden stuff that they'd rebadged.
Well, back to Land Rover news. The new 2021 Range Rover, first glimpse of cabin and spy shots. Land Rover is well into the development of its new 5th generation Range Rover flagship, and they have the first sightings of the interior here from Autocar. Although we can't make out the overall cabin design, a few clues can be gleaned from the 2 images showing different angles. The first is a central touchscreen that appears to be production spec, which sits proud of the dash center and is significantly larger than before. It also appears to be running a further developed version of JLR's latest Pivi Pro operating system. There doesn't appear to be a separate display for climate functions below it like today's car either. Heavy camouflage continues to hide key elements of the Range Rover's exterior design. However, we know the overall shape will be evolutionary, while it's possible to make out the new design for the headlights, indicators, and daytime running lights. One image shows off the rear wheel steering system. I read that correctly, rear wheel steering system that will make its debut on the new Range Rover. It's not yet known which variants will receive the system, but gives clues to the flexibility of the car's new MLA architecture. We can also see that Land Rover has chosen to stick with the classic style door handles rather than the flush fitting items on the new Velar. At the rear, the shape of the boot lid appears to show that the beloved split tailgate design is retained. The company's new flagship will replace the current Range Rover, which was launched in 2012. Rear steering? I haven't heard about that. Honda had that on was it not the Del Sol, something similar?
The Prelude had it.
Prelude.
The Prelude had it. It was, and Honda's system was actually quite elegant because it was all mechanical. There were no computers involved in it whatsoever, which is really cool. General Motors had it in I think some of their full-size pickup trucks. They had a rear steer option for long wheelbase, improved maneuverability. But yeah, the cool thing is, well, with Honda in particular, the steering was contraphase for parking, made it very, for parking and U-turns, very tight turn, but at speed, it was synchrophase. So lane changes were really quick and crisp.
Would four-wheel steering help off-roading?
It just might.
Yeah.
For getting around obstacles. Yeah. Well, I mean, How many times do you have to execute a 5-point turn in your 109?
Yeah, good point.
You could really benefit from the rear steer in that.
Yes, true. 10 years when they drop it enough in price, and well, no, it won't be 10 years, probably 15 or 20 years before it drop in price. We'll find out. The Land Rover Range Rover D300 Vogue 2021 UK review. Land Rover's all new, mild hybridized 3-liter straight 6 diesel engine powers 2 versions of the full-size Range Rover. And this D300, which now becomes the entry-level version of Solihull's biggest, poshest 4x4, is as tested Vogue trim level, as well as height-adjustable air suspension and the permanent 4-wheel drive with low range. There's 3-zone climate control, digital instruments, gesture-controlled power tailgate, and a cooled front armrest cubby for starters. The Range Rover still hasn't received JLR's very latest Vivi Pro infotainment system, but the Touch Pro Duo system, it does now can play Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, and also gives you Wi-Fi hotspot and a digital TV tuner for no extra cost. Digital TV tuner, really?
Yeah, so you can watch your favorite show while you're driving.
This lower-end diesel engine gives up 49 brake horsepower to the D350, but less than 40 pound-feet of torque. And in terms of on-road performance, it's less than half a second slower and a couple of miles per gallon more efficient. This 4th-generation Range Rover has aged as well as any can think of, consistently becoming a better luxury car as the years have passed, and having started very well in the first place when we recommend this car for a while as the very best luxury car you can buy, full stop. Land Rover's new Ingenium diesel straight 6 is like the icing on the cake that's been in the making since 2012, and it's clearly the pick of the car's engine lineup for anyone who pays for their own fuel. So that's the 2021 D300 Range Rover Vogue, which will not come to the US for at least 25 years. So I guess that last article about the 2021 new Range Rover, the 6th generation, or the 5th generation, that should probably be a 2022 model. I think they had an error in their article.
Be interesting to see.
And new Defender news, the new Land Rover Defender is the real deal. And this is from Road and Track. I'm not going to read the entire article. I recommend you go out and read it yourself. I think it was a nice article. It gives you some good information, and I think is a good, even-handed, from what I can tell, version of the new Defender here, especially here in the US. So check that out. And we have a number of videos to refer you to. First up, the new Defender, how to activate secret radiator wash mode. And this is from Powerful UK Limited on YouTube. I have a link, of course, in the show notes. So apparently there are flaps, louvers in front of the radiator on the new Defender. And when it is cold out, to help the engine heat up faster and retain heat, the louvers are closed. And then when it gets up to speed, or it starts to get warm, the louvers then open up. All well and good. But if you're having gone off-road and you want to clean your radiator to get mud and debris and whatnot off of there, there is apparently the ability to open those louvers while the car is sitting, because they close again when the car stops. Then they close the louvers, so you can get them to open up
without using a dealer machine to do so, I take it.
Apparently this capability, this feature to open the louvers up, is in the shop manual. So this comes from the dealer. This is what they would do at the dealership.
All right. But you don't need a dealer's computer and $300 worth of labor to
That's correct. Yes.
wash your radiator.
That is correct. Yeah. I know that you have to start the engine. I watched it a couple of days ago, so I forget all the details, but you can watch it. But you start the engine, you turn it off. You have to have it in park. Well, whatever the version of park is on the new Defender, it's push button start, but you have to keep the emergency brake on, I think, too. And then you have to hold something, one of the buttons, you have to hold it for 31 seconds, because that's how long it takes that electric motor to open up the louvers. And then it's it. So it's relatively simple once you know it.
As long as you can count to 31.
Next up in the video cavalcade of new Defenders is TFL Car. This is their third video, and this one is What We Love and Hate. It's about, I think, 11 minutes. I recommend you watch it. I think it's pretty good, even-handed based on what their experience was. The one thing I think learned from them that I hadn't there, even though they have a mid-model version, and they were hoping to get the introductory one with the steel wheels, but that didn't happen. So they have this mid version. It doesn't come with recovery hooks, so from the factory, and they indicated that putting them on as an aftermarket was difficult, and that you have to get the X model is what they claim, which doesn't ring a bell with me, but you have to get the X model to get the off-road hooks from the factory on there, which if you're going to be taking off road would be highly recommended.
Well, you need to have good recovery points.
Yeah. I do recall that we talked about a video a couple of months ago where somebody installed at least the front recovery point not aftermarket, because it was genuine auto parts or genuine Land Rover parts, but it didn't seem that difficult, at least for the front recovery point. But I'm not sure about the rear recovery points.
Capability you can see in the bumper, they have the knockouts that you could put 2 in the rear, and I think, as you said, 1 in the front. That sounds like a good opportunity for a aftermarket third party to come up with, if they haven't already, to add that on. I haven't looked at the specs of the new Defender lately. I thought you could get an off-road package that included the hooks, but they also highly suggested, if you're in America, to get the V6. They thought that had plenty of power, good power here in the U.S., which seems to make some sense to me. Mm-hmm. North America. Sorry, Dixon. And then next up is Doug DeMauro. He has bought a new Defender, and he took it coast to coast and back. He went 6,938 miles, and he then has at least the first of, I don't know if he's going to have other videos, but he had this video that was what he liked and didn't like about the new Defender. So read a bit. Here's an article that refers to the video. You can watch the video yourself. But the Doug DeMauro YouTube channel looks at all manner of automotive things. And his latest video is about the 2020 Land Rover Defender. He shares what he loves and hates about it after a 7,000-mile road trip, including the one thing it has over the old Defender as well. Stick around for that one. Having taken his new Defender off-road twice, Doug is very impressed by what he's seen and what the car has handled. In terms of what Doug does not love about the new Defender, there are 1 or 2 things. One is that they placed the driver's door lock. And another thing is he's not a fan of the mute system.
So I guess the new one has over the old one after a 7,000-mile road trip is that after 7,000 miles, you can get out and you can still walk.
No chiropractor needed.
No, the thing that the old one has over the new one, his claim is the Heritage model is cool. The new one is not cool. But the new one is very capable and is a great daily driver and will do great things off-road and on-road. It's just not, quote unquote, cool.
Well, as Hamster says, they should have put a Discovery badge on it because that's what it is.
2 things he mentioned I hadn't heard before with the mute button, which I think they can fix because apparently the audio, it mutes itself and you couldn't turn it on, but that's an over-the-air update. I think they could fix that problem. But they place the locking switch for the door at your knee. And he says, so if you're going down a highway and you're then kind of relaxed a bit and you put your knee against the door, then it locks or unlocks the door.
Well, at least it doesn't fly open and release the latches.
If you guys think it's a disco, they should move the switches back to the middle.
Well, I actually kind of like the switches in the middle. I
did too. I thought that was I had it in the Freelander and the Discovery. I think it was a great place for it. And so you can watch his video. We'll have a link to his video, plus that article. We'll have a link to the video. And then the final video is British Farmer Test 2021 Land Rover Defender. He has only one gripe with it. Generic British Farmer, supposedly the prime target for Land Rover Defenders, or at least that's what it's been with off-roaders in previous generation. So after hearing what automotive journalists and YouTube influencers think of the new model, how about listening to an opinion from those who is created for? Well, to be fair, Harry is a bit of all 3 combined. He's one of the people who founded the world-renowned British car magazine Evo back in 1998, so he's got the journalist part covered. He runs not 1, but 2 YouTube channels with a combined 500,000 subscribers, so he's a decently sized YouTube figure. Finally, Harry owns a 2,000-acre farm where he grows things like wheat and rapeseed. He owns a Series 1 and a Range Rover. You'd expect from a British farmer and a car enthusiast, he's no stranger to Land Rover products. I think we've talked about one of his Range Rover video before. Like so many people before him, though, Harry is baffled by the price tag. As Harry puts it, that's more than a Discovery and damn near close to a Range Rover Sport, and all from what was once the brand's workhorse. Well, we should get used to the fact that it's now become Land Rover's work unicorn and just get over it. I had to say that word there, work unicorn. They put that in there. Kind of makes sense.
That it does.
It's a cool video to watch because he does some donuts in the Defender and spins it out.
He's got a good series of videos on YouTube. He actually, one of them is reviewing his Series 1.
Check it out. So I think if you're in the market for new Defender, these are good good videos to watch and see what other people are experiencing before you get into it and maybe decide what you want, what features you don't want. Things I am hearing is the rear, is cavernous. There's lots of space, rubber on rubber, so it's easy to clean out. There's not a lot of carpeting. I know the TFL folks, they commented on when the seats folded down, it was good for the dog because there was not carpeting on the back of the seats. It was that rubberized kind of texture stuff, right, which was good for the dog, and they could grip, and then it was easier to clean off than carpet.
You end up giving less of your dog to the next owner.
As the owner of a Siberian Husky, I know all too well.
We'll move on into older Land Rover news. Bowler Land Rovers are rare, and now 7 custom off-roaders are heading to auction. A collection of custom Land Rovers belonging to former Bowler Motors director Richard Hayward is scheduled to hit the block as part of RM Sotheby's Paris sale next month. That would be February. The clear pick of the litter is the 2010 Land Rover Defender SVX Spectre. The blacked out four-wheeler is a faithful recreation of the stealthy SUV that stole the show in the James Bond film Spectre, according to the auction house. The reproduction, which features fat knobby tires, a roof rack, and heavy-duty winch, took over 250 hours to build. Be that as it may, the other half dozen Bowler builds are also worthy of your attention. There's a one-of-a-kind 2015 Bowler Pennine V6 110 prototype truck, a 2013 Land Rover Defender 90 hardtop TD Challenge. Also, alongside those 2 matching off-roaders are 2 sporty Defenders, a 2015 90 hardtop XS, a 2015 110 Landmark XS. There are the gunmetal gray and lime green 2016 Bowler CSP P1 V8 prototype, and the metallic red and charcoal gray 2016 Bowler CSP2 V8 prototype super trucks. Mechanical details for the 7 Bowler off-roaders are scant, but based on the custom shop's history, we expect these trucks to come fully loaded. Each of the utility trucks will be offered without reserve when RM Sotheby's Paris sale was held on February 13th. The Defender SVX Spectre is expected to sell for $185,000 to $250,000, while the rest of the vehicles are expected to sell between $75,000 and $125,000. So get your Bowler. I had to include this article even though it's going to hurt me at the same time. This is what makes Land Rover Freelander LR2 the worst daily driver. That's the article. From Hot Cars, never heard of them, but the article came up. I'll read you a bit of it. The Freelander, they've got some information wrong here too, so I partly want to set the record straight. The Freelander, better known as the LR2 in North America, debuted in 97, with its second generation getting introduced in 2006. While Land Rovers are very desirable despite their reliability concerns, the Freelander was troubled with too many of them. This led to many owners taking their concerns to dealerships, while others took them to various forums. In essence, many Land Rover Freelander owners weren't quite happy with their purchase. And setting the record straight, the Freelander was known as the Freelander here from 2002 to I think 2006 when it became the LR2. Land Rover, this is where they get into some details here. Land Rover brought out the Freelander as a 5-door as a compact SUV back in the late 90s. In fact, Land Rover was the earliest adopter of the compact SUV bandwagon with a Freelander. Although the first generation Freelander wasn't brought to the US, the better refined second generation LR2 was brought in. That is wrong. There's where you need to clarify. The Freelander 1 was in fact brought to the US. I owned one in 2002. That was my very first Land Rover. And then the LR2's, the second generation, the Freelander 2. Continuing the article, interestingly, the Freelander was the first Land Rover ever to be offered with front-wheel drive in 2010. I think that's true. Or I thought it was the Evoque. Wasn't the Evoque the first front-wheel drive only? However, citing financial concerns and poor sales, the Freelander was discontinued in 2014 and replaced with a Disco Sport. So they go on to talk about some other things. At the end, they then say that the LR2 is a great car, but it's not the most ideal for daily errands. However, its engine is quite potent, and its off-road prowess is likely unrivaled by any. I don't know if I got that far. Do your research when you happen to stumble across a good deal and try to understand in advance what could potentially happen to the car in a couple of years. The LR2 is definitely a brilliant car, but sadly, its caveats far outweigh all that's good about it. Now that I agree with.
Does it mention somewhere that there are probably more 80 inches on the road today than there are Freelanders in the Western Hemisphere?
Not in the article, but you just did in the podcast. So,
Oh,
And the article also failed to mention just how good the Freelander was at catching chimneys.
See, here I told you this would all hurt me. The Freelander 1 was here available in the U.S. And I know where there is one, and it's in Latrobe.
The remains.
Yeah, the remain. Good luck getting it going.
It comes with a free chimney.
Finally, Land Rover emerges from sand 31 years after getting stuck on Cornish beach. You probably saw the pictures. And an unusual wreck has been exposed on a Cornish beach during lockdown following winter storms and a week of exceptionally low tides. Pictures taken exactly 31 years to the day after it got stuck at low tide on Hale Beach show a Land Rover reemerging from the sand after being buried for decades. There's a bunch of pictures. They have a picture of it when it was upright and on tarmac. It looks like I think a Series 2, right?
it's a Series 3.
Series 3.
I think it's Series 3.
The lights are in the or in the grill or in the near the breakfast.
Yeah, it looks like Series 2. Huh?
The mirrors are at the door, so that's a 2A, right? They're not on the wings.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's probably a 2A.
Okay, an article I read didn't have the photos of the thing. It only had photos of the thing upside down in the sand. Said it was a 3.
Okay, well, let's see. Wrong information.
Wrong.
Are you sure it's the same truck?
Good point.
Is there enough of the VIN left to make sure?
I guess January 13th, 1990, with Merry Christmas Cornwall still painted on the side of it, the vehicle's owner, Ronnie Haney, had driven with his wife Margaret and daughters Gina and Vicky down to the water's edge in Hale that day when it got stuck in the soft sand.
How much alcohol was involved?
He had his teenage daughters with him, so I'm hopefully not.
I say again, how much alcohol was involved?
Apparently it reemerged once a couple years ago, and then when the tide was low, and then it sunk back under the sand or the water was too high. And
kind of like the Loch Ness Monster. Makes an occasional appearance just so you know it's still there.
It's still there. There you go. There's your Series 2A, 31 years under the sand. Maybe any chance, was it the Toyota Hilux, they can take it out of the sand and get it started?
I'm guessing it'll take a little more than 30 minutes and a few hand tools.
Oh, yeah. It'd be full of sand. That would be you'd have to build a cofferdam around the thing.
Notice when it was parked there and then it got stuck in the sand. I think they went to try to get some help and they couldn't. By the time they got back, it had sunk. But in all this 30 years, it has spun over on itself and it's now wheels up. So I'm certainly that's done. All the waves crashing on over the years have done some damage.
Yeah, I wonder how many times it's gone over.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah,
it may be tumbled like a gemstone. All smooth, shiny.
So that's the news for January 2021. And now on the Centresteer podcast, calling us from southern France is Thérèse-Marie Becker. Welcome, Therese-Marie. I guess we're allowed to call you T also. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ron. Thank you. Yes, it's been a good day here in southern France.
That's wonderful. For those listening, when you listen, Jeff Aronson, editor of Rovers Magazine, is also joining us. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. It is not as nice a day in this island off the coast of Maine as I'm sure it is in beautiful southern France.
It's also not your birthday, Jeff.
It is not my birthday, but when it is, I would expect the same kind of happy birthday song fest that we gave Therese-Marie today.
You can expect it. Doesn't mean you're going to get it.
So now we see why you did what you did, Jeff, before we started recording the podcast. Yeah, Jeff wanted us to sing to Therese-Marie, and now we know why. I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Once the seed is planted.
Oh, yeah. Establishing a precedent.
Thank you.
So, Therese-Marie, what's your involvement with Land Rovers? First of all, what do you do? What's your claim to fame, I guess?
Oh dear. Thank you.
And happy birthday.
Thank you, John. That's very kind. I am a digital marketing consultant, and I was one of the 8 team members of the Last Overland. So we drove from Singapore to London.
You were part of the Last Overland. That's so cool. Yeah.
And you survived to talk about it.
I survived to talk about it. I don't know what I survived, if it was my team or if it was Oxford. I don't know.
Probably
I think
both.
The correct answer is yes.
So how did you get involved in the Last Overland?
It was a very fun story because at the very, very beginning, Alex Bescaby, who is the initiator of the project, actually is friend with one of my friends, and we've got together a work project, and Charlie Smith put Alex Bescaby in touch with me because Alex was looking for initially a social media person, which turned out to be a bit more complicated than this because it was a bit more than social media. And that's how we had a call of an hour. We chatted for an hour, and Alex was telling me about his incredible project that was the last Overland, and that they were driving from Singapore to London, and they needed someone in France or in the UK to tell the story that was happening. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm interested. So 18 hours later, we were agreeing on working together. And then, yeah, I just happened to become part in May 2019 of the Last Overland team, which I was supposed to do home-based.
But you actually went to Singapore, did you not?
Yeah, that's the fun part of the story, because Alex had underlined to me several times, well, you'll be working from home. So I was like, yes, I would love to be, on the expedition, but I'll be working from home. And then I flew to Singapore with them the first time in the beginning of June, when we were doing the unveiling of Oxford in Singapore at Land Rover Singapore. And there I was already starting to do my work, because being a digital marketing specialist, besides telling stories, I'm also working with all our incredible partners, making sure that we are all happy with what's happening digitally. And that's also the communication, mainly, that's the most important part, is happening with all the Land Rover fans of Singapore and all around the world. It turns out that I came back from Singapore to only realize, well, they were starting of talking of actually getting me on the expedition until Malaysia, which is quite literally 4 hours away from Singapore. And I was like, this is amazing, and I'm so excited about this. So the preparation for the Last Overland was really going on. And then in August, I happened to have Alex telling me, no, it was the end of July. Alex told me, look, pack your bags, because, you may or may not, but you may be on the expedition for a little while with us. And I was like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm going to Malaysia, but I had no idea how long I was going for. And so I had a big duffel bag. All the team members will probably ask you what was in that duffel bag, because it was really big, but women travel light. That's something we know. And
so what was in the duffel bag?
Well,
parts for Oxford.
I had to make my bag for winter and summer temperatures, because I had no idea until where I was going with the team. That's the reality. So in August, when I was in Scotland's most remote pub, the 1st of August, because I was bringing my little brother Martin, and I had my big duffel bag because I had to stay for 12 days in London, and I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea what I was signing up for, because in London, the guys told me, oh yeah, you probably are going to come with us till Kathmandu, which meant Nepal, which was totally not on the list nor in discussion before. So in Scotland's most remote pub, I happened to meet my now partner, and then I go on an expedition. So I stay in London for 12 days, and then I go on, I was in Singapore for another 12 days. And then the 25th of August, we took off from Singapore. We entered Malaysia, and there I had my big duffel bag, not knowing for how long I was actually going to be on the road for. I had no idea. So first of all, I had never met the entire team. Second, I had no idea for how long I was going to be on the road for. So when I said goodbye to my parents and my siblings, they were like, when are you coming back? And I had to tell them, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. So that's what happened.
So you went off on a expedition journey with people you didn't know.
Yeah.
This sounds like every Land Rover venture I've ever heard of.
Going off in the woods with people you don't know. You don't know when you're coming back. You don't know how far you're going to go.
That's exactly it.
Therese, we actually had that happen in our local Land Rover club community where we met this guy and he's like, "Hey, why don't you come with us? We're gonna go off roading." And we're in the middle of the woods on a trail, and he goes, "Who goes off with people you don't know into the middle of the woods?" You know, just that is. So you going to Singapore? Not unsurprising.
No, it's quite fun because I knew Alex because I was working directly with Alex. I knew Marcus because I was working with Marcus because Marcus was the person who was doing all the logistics. And it's like he's a very important key person in our expedition because Alex was the voice and really the thinker of the project. Marcus was really in charge of the logistics and creating the itinerary. And then I had met Larry in the first time in June for a couple of hours, but that was about it. And so I met then Leopold and David. So Leopold was the filmmaker and director of production. David was filmmaker and working on the capturing of images with Leopold. And then I had met Dr. Sill in June, who was the doctor of the expedition, and I met Nat 2 days before leaving, who is Tim's grandson.
That was pretty much when he joined the team, was 2 days before leaving.
Exactly. He came to Singapore to say goodbye to his granddad, who was helping on the expedition with us, and because that's actually what the plan was. Is that team? The team was the seven of us. So without Nat and Tim Slasser, who had done the expedition 65 years ago in the same Oxford. The thing is that Tim had been really, really ill 3 weeks before. He had, I'm not sure if it was a lung infection. I can't remember what exactly it was, but he was really, really ill. Luckily, he could join us in Singapore and be with us. And basically, he had his bag, packed for the expedition, etc. And the day of leaving, so on the 25th, we found Tim. Tim had fallen in his room. Basically, and he had to be brought to the hospital. So that was pretty distressing, to be honest, on the 25th. And what happened is that, well, Nat was there and abruptly was brought in with us. So talking about strangers being on an expedition together, we had the lovely addition of Nat quite literally the first day of the expedition.
And I'm guessing, since Nat was a last minute addition, that he was not packed for an expedition. Exactly.
Nat was coming to say goodbye to his granddad because it was just, it was incredible because Nat is the same age as, almost the same age as Tim was when he did the expedition.
Right.
So it was it was crazy. And so Nat was taking care of his granddad in Singapore when he was with us. We had to make a decision on the 25th, which was not an easy one.
See, what did I tell you? It's not uncommon for an expedition to happen with people you don't know. It's yet again.
In a nutshell, yes.
Did you actually drive Oxford during the Last Overland?
Oh yeah. Gosh, you can't go on a driving expedition without driving. I mean, that would be pretty useless.
Was this your first? Was this your first attempt at a non-synchro mesh transmission and manual steering?
I really wish I could say yes on this, but I learned driving on old army trucks in Belgium. So they were very old army trucks. So
good for you. That's the best kind.
I can tell you that I know how heavy a truck is. When I was 12, playing with my granddad and on his property, and the army truck is what you imagine being an old army truck. You've got the trunk in the back, fully open, and then you've got that huge truck. It's really big when you're 12 years old, and you try to turn the wheels, and you really hope that your granddad is doing the backup of the turning of the steering wheel, because it's just impossible on your own.
Yeah, he is the power assist module.
Exactly. I was just pointing directions, and then sometimes touching the pedals, sometimes changing gears, sometimes driving. And then when I grew up a little bit, I was able to drive it by myself. And then tractors, and then more convenient cars like a car that's not, well, that's not a Land Rover or an old tractor or an old army truck. That's
you learned the way I wish everybody had to learn.
I think it's the best way.
Absolutely.
Not to make anyone mad about driving skills, but I think it's the best way.
What countries did you drive Oxford in, and what were the roads like?
Oh my God. Do you want me to go over the 23 countries?
Sure. Yeah, we
sure,
got time.
Why not?
We got time.
We got an endless reel of tape here. Just keep going.
I put in the 128 gigabyte flash card, so we're good.
Well, so we drove on the most pristine road we had seen in Singapore. That was the first thing. I think that Singapore had never seen that many Land Rovers on the day of the flag off, because every single Land Rover owner was in Singapore with their Land Rover on the F1 pit, which was crazy.
As they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly what should have happened. That's the best thing that we could have actually wished for. And then we arrived in Malaysia, which were pristine roads as well. It was really, really warm, but we were so far on normal roads because we just didn't have any other possibilities, basically. And then in Malaysia, we arrived in Thailand, and that's in Thailand that we had our first dirt roads. So we were on normal roads a lot of the time in Thailand. And then the more we were going towards Burma, the more the roads were becoming, well, pretty decent for Land Rovers, let's put it that way. So you had like a lot of mud and a lot of water, and we were full in the monsoon season as well in Burma. So that was quite interesting because we had mud, and it was just red mud absolutely everywhere, and water, and the most crazy bridges that you can imagine. So that was beautiful. And then in Burma, we had normal roads as well, but the majority of the ways that we were taking were really just dirt roads in the countryside of Burma. Obviously not when we were in the center, but not in Myanmar, for example, or in Manipangan when we were on the biggest highway of the world with 16 lanes, which was pretty insane and very empty, very useless. But you have to see it when you're driving a Land Rover through a country.
16 lanes, so 8 in each direction.
That's correct. Wow. 8 in each direction. It's very bizarre to see it because that highway is absolutely empty, and you share it with cars that are pulled by buffaloes.
There you go.
It's very weird. It's a very weird atmosphere because you really are. It's considered as almost a ghost town and a ghost area of Myanmar. So it's very bizarre. It's a very weird atmosphere. So we were there, and then we went into India through Nagaland. And first, did we first go to Nagaland, or did we first go through Darjeeling? First to Nagaland, and then into Darjeeling, and then so the West Bengal, and then we went into the roads in India were very scary, to be honest. We had a good share of really scary moments in India because it's not really yourself that you're afraid of. It's more the fact that you're on a highway at a normal highway speed, which is about 70 kilometers per hour over there. And then the road just stops in front of your eyes. And if you don't check the traffic in the distance, you don't know that the road is stopping. So you literally have to find ways to get on that highway. It's to the point that the road we're on bridges, for example, and the cement that they had put was not poured where the attachment of the bridge was. So you had to go around it. So you had to come off that bridge and then go up again. And if you were driving through it, your car would just quite literally fall in holes, it was very scary. When we had our longest driving day in India before leaving the country. And so we were on what was called an expressway, and we were all very excited about it because we generally thought, oh my God, we finally have normal, a bit of normal driving roads, because we were coming from beautiful, incredible dirt roads, but with a lot of cow and goats and dogs and cats and monkeys on it, and people additionally to that, and shops. So it's not easy to drive in those conditions. So we were hoping that the expressway would at least allow us to gain terrain, because in every single country that we went through, we were on a visa. So you have to stay within the time that you are located in the country. We arrived on that expressway and we saw the craziest thing. Like, we've got dash cam footage where we had people running off in front of our vehicles, in the back of our vehicles, next to our cars. Super sketchy, because truck drivers were driving the opposite way on our lanes. So, but you have to imagine it's considered an expressway. So you're driving fast-ish, as fast as Oxford can go. And you've got a truck coming your way. It's pitch dark. They've got no lights on because they think that it's using diesel or kerosene. So they just don't turn the lights on. And you're there with your little tiny Oxford, and you're like, my God, this is really insane.
The rules are merely suggestions over there, as I understand it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Suggestion is it's almost too kind. I think that it's really a matter of who is the strongest and who is the biggest and who is the smartest to pass, because we're really in places where, like, for example, that expressway we were on, we finally made it to our sleeping location, and the next day we checked the newspaper, and they reported a killing on the exact same highway that we were on, because 2 women had been crossing the highway and had been taken by a truck. So they had been in a collision, but they were, how do you call them in English? They were walking by foot, so they were not in a vehicle. They were, there were no passenger or anything. Yeah, pedestrians, and thank you. And the truck just ran them over, like, just as that. And that's exactly where we were the day before. So that was one of the moments when you actually just get chills in your back, because you're like, my gosh, that was, like, we felt the pressure driving on that road. It was definitely not the same pressure as you drive through a very complicated, I don't know, for example, dirt canyon, but it's definitely a type of stress that, Oxford has got no real good brakes. That her acceleration is not ideal. That you are tired because you've been on the month for a month and a half then. That you have to deal with people and with trucks that are 10 times your power and that don't see you at all, that they probably don't have brakes. So when you've got a hill, that they're coming down a hill, you just hope that they'll see you and you hope that you're not in their way. So it's the kind of stress which was really, like, even just talking about it right now, I feel, I really feel like it's very present. It's really a type of stress where we're always constantly alert, because besides the fact that you had to pay attention to the traffic, you still are the stranger in that environment. So you still have to, for everyone else around you, it's a normal situation. So they know it's normal and they know it's going to be fine. But for you, it's totally not the case.
Well, and Oxford's not engineered for accident avoidance by any means.
Oh my Lord, definitely not.
Did you actually drive in India?
Yeah, I did. I've got a few videos actually of when I'm driving in India. I have to admit, it was incredible. It was an incredible driving experience, because a lot of roads in India, in function of where you were in the country, because obviously it's a big country, right? And where, in function of where you were in the country, you would really stumble upon the craziest type of roads, the craziest road situation. We were passing between Nagaland and the location that we were going to arrive in Nepal. And we passed next to a quarry that was next to the road, and you had two big caterpillar driver on top of each other, quite literally on top of each other, just digging rocks and sand where the road is literally like under them where you're driving on it, and you've got those massive blocks of stone and sand and everywhere. It's a very bizarre scenario. It's really fun though.
So they're building the road as you're driving on it?
Yeah, actually, talking about building the road, we've got a fun story.
Wow.
Because in Thailand, we actually were on a road that 65 years ago Tim and his team were on, but the road was gravel, and he talks about that road in the book. And we were on that exact same road that was built, so we were on the good road, but on the exact same location as Tim had been 65 years ago. So that was pretty that was a little moment for us, just being like, oh my god, this actually happened 65 years ago.
I think that was the Burma Road, was it not? They were from
so Burma Road as well, but it was mainly the road from in India. We passed next to an elephant shrine, and it's an elephant shrine, which was, long story short, they moved the road to not move a particular piece of rock because they basically couldn't move it, because they said that every single tool couldn't move it. So they moved the road around that piece of rock, created an elephant shrine, because elephants would keep on coming over there. And so when you go on that road, you have a lot of truck drivers and cars that stop. And if they don't stop, they honk. And because they want to tell, well, two things. They want to tell the elephants that they're there, so the elephants don't cross the road. And the second thing is that they're paying respect to the elephants. But then, we stopped there, and we lit some, I think it's called firecrackers. It's something that makes a lot of noises because it's supposed to pay respect. I'm not exactly sure of the meaning, but it seems important. Let's put it that way.
Let's set off loud noises for the elephants. Yes.
Oh yeah, that won't. No, not at all.
So talking about roads, it was insane. India was crazy. We had hot and cold and mud and rocks and a lot of water, an awful lot of water. So it was really often just wet, and just we were stuck actually in an. I don't know if you've had that story, but we were in India. Our convoy has been stopped by Indians in Nagaland because there had been what is it called? Basically, there had been an arson in their village by a village that was a neighboring village, and all the houses of that village that we wanted to pass through just had been put on fire the morning that we arrived. We have been stopped because of a land dispute. And that took an awful long time. It was very dangerous. We were stopped 3 times, and then in the middle of a very, very big crowd of people with armed military, but also armed people who were living there. And we saw more than 12 army trucks that were just filled with armed men from the military, from I don't know which group, and we stayed there for about 4 hours. And that's one of the moments where I didn't move out of Oxford, which was just very sketchy because it was a lot of tension, because obviously the village was very angry that their houses had been put on fire, and they weren't letting no one pass through. So we had to negotiate a lot to actually be able to go on the only roads that existed to get through our location.
That's an incredible story there. That's good. You were eventually released, I take it, by the villagers or the police or the militia?
By the villagers, yeah, by the villagers. So we drove, we made our way to Kohima. And in Kohima, Nagaland, that's where a very important battle for World War II was fought. it was a very important place. It's worth looking into that history for anyone who is a fan of World War II. I'm sure that they know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And then we made it to Nepal, which was probably one of my favorite places for the driving. We drove in the night over to get in time to our to the Chinese border, and in Nepal, just before leaving the country, they requested us to give them back the present that had been made to us by a village that we had been visiting. It was a pair of buffalo horns that were, imagine they were probably 1.80 meter in total in length on the top of Oxford's roof. You imagine the size of Oxford. Wow. That was we were really sad to have to give them back, because the village had given that present to Alex, but it had been just freshly cut in the morning. So, all good, and sorry to bring the grim details, but bloody and fresh. Yeah. Beautiful, but we couldn't leave it. We couldn't leave with it in China. We had to leave it in Nepal. They seemed very, very happy to confiscate it from us. We were not. So we had a lot of stressful driving the last night in Nepal, because first of all, the sleeping location was wrong. So we had to drive another 2 hours and a half in the dark on a muddy road with about 1 meter before it was just a pit, like a hole. It was nothing. You had about 120, 150 meters of cliffs next to you and a river. So if you drove next to your road, if Oxford had been temperamental that day, that would have been deadly, quite literally. The mud was very difficult to drive through, because the mud makes those you've got the lines of the tires of the people that drive in front of you, basically
ruts,
but it just becomes very sturdy and very hard to navigate at the points if you want to take a better side of the road when it's very wet, for example, because either way, it's not as sturdy or it's too sturdy. So it makes it super complicated. And you have to imagine that we've got about, if we had 3.5 meters with roads, that would have been a lot. And on one side, you had just rocks and cliffs that were there were rocks literally falling, not fast, but next to us, because there had been a lot of water and a lot of rain. And on the other side, on our left side, there was the nothingness. And you have to imagine that Oxford has none to zero lights.
Oh, I don't have to imagine it at all. I don't have to imagine it at all. I know what you're talking about.
Yes, we're well aware.
It's pitch dark.
We have driven after dark in Oxford. Those headlights are ornaments. They are not navigation lights.
That's exactly it. Ornaments. That's the best way of putting it. It was hard. It was hard. We were very happy to arrive at our hotel, but it was a really hard driving night. Then we made it to China, which had the most pristine conditions for driving on not dirt roads. I have never seen such an immaculate tarmac in my life. But obviously, even if we were feeling really adventurous and wanted to go not driving on the roads, we quite literally had to, because we were facing the possibility of, if not imprisonment, definitely big problems, because we were going through complicated side of China. So China was hard mainly because we had to go over a lot of passes. That means more than 5,000 meter altitude. And we have got one group photo at 5,300, I think, which is, it's higher than Mont Blanc in France. When you go that high, you are supposed to be very, saving your oxygen, mainly because it's so hard for your body. But nothing up there feels like you are doing mountaineering, because you quite literally are going to that height with a vehicle. And Oxford was, she was doing great, but my God, she was feeling the altitude as well. China was hard.
You weren't the only one feeling anemic at that altitude. Oxford was feeling it too.
That's exactly it. I think the two only places where we really genuinely wondered if Oxford would make it up there were on the roads to Darjeeling, Tonglu, and China.
I think they had to They had the same questions in the Rockies when Oxford was here in America.
Yeah, I'm sure they had, actually. They must have had that because Oxford is like, she's a temperamental lady and she's going to let you know what she's happy to do that day and what she's not. My Lord, we really, really wandered in China. We had to quite literally take up speed when we were going down from one of those passes to hope that Oxford would actually just make it up. But, you have exactly. You're supposed to.
Well, that's driving like a trucker. That's how you do it. You run like hell down the hill so you can make a good attack on the next hill.
Well, you know how loud Oxford is, and
Really?
It's absolutely normal that she's that loud. But then she's louder when she turns, for example, and you're like, this doesn't sound just quite right. That's not the same loud,
Yes, well, there's a certain point of speed where it gets and different things rattle.
Exactly. You're spot on, John. That's exactly it.
That's kind of a Land Rover feature.
The engineers call that resonance.
That's mandatory. Yes. If you don't have that, I'm not even sure you're driving a Land Rover, really.
Right.
Well, you're not driving a proper one, that's for sure.
So in China was incredible because we really went from noodles for 2 weeks and yak meat to shashlik when we arrived when we actually came down from the Himalaya, because in China we had seen no tree for a solid 2 weeks and a half. And then we arrive in the lower plateau of the Himalaya, and there we were not sure that we were hallucinating, but we actually saw camels. And just to actually learn that there were camels just freely in the mountains. And it's the craziest thing you see when you're coming from a desertic view of snow and rocks and yaks and a couple of communistic villages. It's then you see a camel in trees and you're like, this is paradise. It's weird. Then we left China after being held in China for 6 hours because they said that they had an electricity breakdown, so we were not allowed to leave the country, which was crazy because they actually we were stuck in China for 6 hours longer than what we were supposed to do and to be there. So that was a bit of a stressful situation because we were actually not sure that they would allow us outside. They, being the digital, let's say the digital element of the team, the guards actually took my phone and my laptop, went through it, and it's a weird feeling. It's not fun. Let's put it that way. It's not fun.
So was the border post down because they didn't have electricity there, or was it?
That's what they said. I don't know if they really genuinely didn't have electricity or not, but I can guarantee you that it's a weird situation because they don't speak English at all or guides. They, you're not with your guides anymore. They, at a certain point, they just let you do you as a foreigner, and them, they do them. And you've got that weird in-between phase where you just genuinely hope that everything is going to be fine because you see that you are stuck in a country from which you don't know the language. And we had been passing through, let's say the more secretive sides of the country. So no cameras allowed, no filming, no computers inside, no nothing. And generally, they did make me delete pictures of even just remote pictures of what could have been anything. It's it puts you in some sort of atmosphere. Mm-hmm. We left China. We were delighted to leave China, and we made it into one of what I consider the most beautiful country that we've been through was Kyrgyzstan. And we stayed in Kyrgyzstan for 24 hours. And we arrived in Kyrgyzstan. So I was driving Oxford in the pitch dark. It was so dark. It was so cold. And PAC, which was the 110 that was behind us, had just his normal lights on, but they were flashing me in Oxford, so making a reflection, making it impossible for me to see the road. But we're on a road where you had on one side the nothingness, and on the other side you had just rocks, and it was so cold. We had been driving for another 2.5 hours in Kyrgyzstan, and we're just going up and up and up. And Oxford, that was one of the moments when Oxford was not at her best at all. So we didn't know, like, we didn't have brakes. We had, some that maybe that was just tickling the tires when we were braking, but it was not braking. Like, we had no brakes, and we had no lights whatsoever. Obviously, no heating, because the heating was down. The heating system was down. It was on in Singapore. It was on in Malaysia. We couldn't stop it because it was a failure at the bloody handle to just activate it. But it was down in freaking Kyrgyzstan and China, in the most important location.
The coldest places.
Yeah, exactly. It was so cold. When we arrived in Kyrgyzstan, we arrived at the location we were sleeping, and that was the best. I think that's one of my best memory of the expedition, because it was a tiny little house. It was not a village that was inside. It was nothing. It was just an openness of nothingness. And on one side you had barbed wire, which was probably had been there for not centuries, but definitely lots of years. And then you had just animals, and they welcomed us in a tiny little room. They lined out 12 glasses of vodka shots. They took out that's how you do it. That's how you do it. They took out homemade vodka, and they then brought a big box, which was made out of metal. And it was looking like a drawer. And they opened that drawer, and it was actually yak that they had killed the morning itself, just slowly cooked it and smoked it. And that was the most amazing vodka and yak fat that I've had in my entire life. I can guarantee you that. That was the best thing ever.
Vodka and smoked yak sounds like a party to me.
It's really worth it if you get to try it, or if you've had already.
What does yak taste like? Is it similar to beef or chicken?
Tastes like chicken.
It's a dark meat. I would say that it's a crossover between. I don't know. Do you guys eat horses in America or not?
We
Is
do
it a
not.
thing?
No,
not so much. Well, not knowingly.
Yeah, it's banned.
Yeah,
Right.
I've had horse meat in France. Yeah.
Right. So horse meat is a really, really red meat. It's really, really red, and it's not really fibery, but it's got a very distinct taste. And so yak meat is, I would say, a crossover between horse meat and beef, and the fat is more like beef fat. The thing that you or like pig's fat as well that you stir fried.
It sounds like heavy buffalo to me.
I think it's a bit similar to it. The only thing is that it's less tender, because those animals are in super hard conditions, so you have to slow cook them. Well, it's a lot of muscle, and but it's very tasty. I have to admit that it's really, really good meat, dry and any part of it, the bones and the dry meat and the fat, and just, it's really, really tasty.
Did the yak taste better after several homemade vodka shots, or did it taste very good before you had the vodka?
Before, actually, because that's another thing that's important to know, or I'm assuming maybe you know that already. When you drink vodka, you try to have really ingredients or food that's super high in fat. So you basically create a little layer in your tummy, so you don't actually just get drunk by,
Yeah.
Vodka's absorbed quickly, yes.
When I was in college, we used cheeseburgers for the same.
Is that why White Castle exists?
Yes, exactly. It is. Sliders.
Oh my God.
And Taco Bell.
Yeah, no, yak food is something in which I was knowingly ordering it in restaurants. Let's put it that way.
So this is a podcast recommendation. Track down some yak meat.
That's. Let me know. I'd be very curious to hear what you think of it.
Sounds vaguely like Black Bear, which I've had.
Oh my God! No, I've never had that.
Bear is amazingly tasty, but it's tricky when you get an old bear. Parts of him can be tough and parts of him can be tender, but he is tasty.
All right, I've never had that. I think I'd be interested. I'd be very interested to actually go through the whole process of getting the bear and eating it. I don't know if it's legal or not. Is that a thing?
Yeah, sure it is.
Yeah,
I had a guy who worked with me, one of my partners in another business venture, was a hunter, and he went to, I believe it was in Canada where they were hunting the bear, and there is a bear hunting season and that sort of thing. But he went to a place where there were guides and that sort of thing. So he did the kill, and then the people actually helped him. And when he left to come home, it was all packed and wrapped and frozen, and he had the hide in a special package. And so the hide hangs on the wall, and they shared some of the meat with me, which was very nice.
It sounds delightful. I'd be very curious when I come over to the States, which in Canada, which I hope is going to be soon. I'm putting that on the bucket list.
Okay.
We were in China, Kyrgyzstan. We were then in Tajikistan, which was impressive. In Tajikistan, we had a lot of shashlik, and which is basically meats. It's basically it's a way of preparing the meat. It looks a little bit like minced meat, but put on a stick in the shape of little flat balls.
Meat on a stick.
Yeah.
Meat on a stick, but it's very tasty. They put it, they do it over the fire. It's very nice. And in Tajikistan, we were welcomed by the most incredible mountains, and we were driving next to the river, which is the border with Afghanistan. And we actually learned that there's a lot of people that live in both of those countries, literally with the site of the border at their house, and they have never ever crossed the border. So that was impressive. And then we were welcomed by a guy to have food at his little coffee bar. I'm not exactly sure what it was, next to the road. And we lifted our heads up, and there was a guy with an armed gun above us. Just checking that no enemies were coming. So, and we actually spotted a couple of others. So the country was very welcoming, though. It's just a bit of a different climate that you're in, because you do realize that Afghanistan is on the other side. And that was one of the hottest spots that we were on our trip to get to safe land, UK. Going from Afghanistan, we were arriving. Hold on, I need to check my map because I don't want to say anything stupid.
What would we know? Just go ahead and say what you want.
Bother us.
Well, it's more so my brain doesn't,
Uzbekistan,
so yeah,
Turkmenistan.
In Uzbekistan, because then we make it. Hold on. Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, that's what we did. When Tajikistan, then Uzbekistan, then Turkmenistan. And in Turkmenistan, I had to fly home for a week and a half. Well, home. I had to fly to the UK for a week and a half because it's the only country, because yes, until then, I only learned when I was in India that I was actually crossing China, because I still had no idea where I was going to stop. No, that's a fact. I had no idea where going to stop. So in India, so just a little rewinding there. In India, Marcus took me aside when we were having food in one of those small little cafe, and he was like, "Yeah, so don't tell anyone just yet, and don't announce it, but you're coming to China." And I was literally like, just ecstatic and in tears, because I had been in the unknown for so long. So yeah, that was interesting. So in Turkmenistan, I flew back home for a week and a half, and
had to do your laundry, right?
That's true, but mainly what I did was bring the hard drives with all the footage back to London, and then I did a road trip in Ireland because I couldn't get enough of the road. So I did a road trip with my partner that I had made. Literally, we were not together at that moment, but we actually started dating each other at the last day of my road trip in Ireland. And we met in that most remote pub of Scotland, which I was telling you about in the beginning of this little journey. Oh, and in Kyrgyzstan, I forgot to mention that I had no visa to enter Tajikistan because the visa people sent me a visa for the next day. So not so I had to stay behind for 7 hours to be able to legally drive the Pamir Highway into Tajikistan. I basically I was not allowed in Turkmenistan. I was basically not allowed there. It's a very complicated country to get through. And fun story and side note is that I ended up meeting the ambassador of Turkmenistan, the ambassador of the UK in Turkmenistan when I was in London. And now I've got an official invitation to Turkmenistan, which I couldn't cross.
Yeah. Now that you don't need it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't need it. So that's a fun thing. That's a little fun side note.
Did you rejoin the Last Overland?
I did. I flew into, so after being to Folkestone, because I was meeting up with the home team in Folkestone for the arrival, which was going to be a month later. And so I rejoined them in Tbilisi in Georgia, where David's family is coming from. David, who is one of our camera guy in the team. So Georgia was beautiful. And then from Georgia, where we actually met up with people from David's family, went into, which country was it?
Turkey?
Yeah, exactly. That was Turkey. And we spent some lovely time in Turkey with the off-road team of Turkey, which was so much fun. That was so good. I had also the weirdest questions of my life over there because because I was sleeping in the same room as the team members who were obviously all males. I was the only female. And everyone was asking me over there, so who is the cousin? Who are you married to? Who is your husband?
Yeah. They don't know what to make of that kind of stuff.
It was fun. In French, we say rire jaune, which literally means yellow laughing, which actually means, you're actually just cringing at the question.
We would say sarcastically, that was fun.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, absolutely loved Turkey. Turkey was gorgeous. We actually had a problem with Oxford in Turkey. I had to push Oxford with pack on the highway, quite literally push Oxford, because at a certain point just it stopped working, and we were on a highway where you've got 2 and 2 lanes that actually become 4 lanes. So it looks like a Y shape. It's the most dangerous place on the highway that you can imagine, because trucks go fast. My God, you want to save your ass. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. You want to save your ass, and then you have to take care of Oxford, which is old. And then, the only thing that comes to your mind is you have to push Oxford with a 110 that's got a Puma engine. So you got to be super gentle with it. Just so you got to go fast and give it enough power. So you're actually saving yourself in Oxford. It was weird. That was a good one, though. We enjoyed it.
Did Oxford run out of fuel, or did it have some other problem?
They had a problem with what is it called? There's a thing that goes to Turkey and starter. Is it called a starter?
Yes.
I think it's called the starter. It's the part that allows quite literally just the car to start.
Yes.
It's the motor that turns the engine over to get it started. Yes.
Right.
And yeah. So you've got the starter. That's that little box, which just can be so. Oh, we had so many problems with it. It was really problematic. Oxford was absolutely fine on diesel. Well, not diesel, sorry, petrol. I'm getting lost in my English.
You're doing great.
Yeah, in China, actually, we ran out of fuel because one of the tanks was not pouring over in the other one, and so the boys tried to get the fuel in one of those tanks, in the other tank, basically, only to realize that 5 kilometers later there was a gas station. So that was a really fun moment in the expedition. But yeah, so from Turkey we crossed the Bosphorus and then we made it to Bulgaria.
All right, you got to spend time in Bulgaria.
We now must pause the podcast for some rejoicing on John's part.
Yes, my grandfather came from Macedonia. My grandmother came from Bulgaria, so I'm a Bulgarian Macedonian American.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I like to hear things about Bulgaria.
Well, Bulgaria and Romania actually both are paradise for off-roading. If you know, that's if you happen to be interested in that.
we might.
We had the president of the Bulgarian Land Rover Club on our show a while back, so they do have a pretty good community there.
Yeah, Bulgaria is definitely a place of adventures. And anything can be done in Bulgaria. You can go off-roading in Bulgaria, but you can also just go skiing as much as you can go rock climbing and be in insanely beautiful and challenging sceneries, because it's next to a sea, well, two seas actually, and it's just one of my most favorite parts of continental Europe, really.
Well, when you get to America, you will see, because I found this to be the case, Bulgaria reminds me of Western Pennsylvania. They have a similar feel to them. Oh,
that's amazing. I'm even more curious now. Oh, yeah. So in Bulgaria, we were we were very tired in Bulgaria. I have to admit that we were really tired because leaving the Asian continent, well, not continent, but basically side of the world that we were in, it was as much as a relief as it was just putting a big drop on our shoulders of now we are on the side of Europe that we know, basically.
You're in familiar territory.
Yeah, and it's just also the fact that Turkey was really feeling familiar, don't get me wrong, and as much as Georgia, because it looks very similar, but still there is a lot of things that are incredibly, incredibly different. And then when you arrive in Bulgaria, you're like, right, that starts to feel like it. Then you arrive in Serbia after Bulgaria, which was very interesting because Serbia has got a very complicated climate. It's, I would say, temperamental, because you've got cold and wind, and it's in a weird location. It's not at the sea, but it's also close enough, and so it's it's a hard climate. And then from Serbia we actually made it to how is that called, Hungary, yes.
Yeah,
Hungary. Yep. Hungary was really a moment where we're feeling, right, this feels like something we know, that's something, you can take a plane from London and get in Hungary. That's no big deal at all. It's a weekend trip is possible over there.
Plus you're in the European community, so you don't have to deal with border checks anymore.
That's true. Border checks, I didn't actually mention a lot of them, but they were a very big deal, especially in from Tajikistan into Uzbekistan. We actually had to empty our vehicles fully.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, it's everything. That means
it's a pain.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. They're really looking for absolutely everything and anything they could potentially find, which you don't know what it is really, but
or anything they could use for themselves, probably.
That's true. We had to in Kyrgyzstan. We had 2 or 3 checkpoints just to get on the Pamir highway, and it was weird to see that there was our guides had money allocated to pay the guards.
Yep.
It's when you're not familiar with that, it's always impressive.
It's a recurring theme in most overlanding books, is the border crossings and the bribes.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, luckily when we're in Hungary, they were absolutely super welcoming. We were welcomed by the Land Rover Club of Hungary. And fun fact is that Marcus' family is basically coming from Hungary on his dad's side. Marcus, who is the logistical expert of the Last Overland, and right. And his entire family from Hungary was over there waiting for us and handing us, food and sweets, and they were welcoming us at the highway, and we had the highway prepared for us in Hungary because we had to cross from a border control, so there's no other way than tarmac roads. You can't take a dirt road when you leave Serbia to actually enter Hungary. So we were welcomed by a huge convoy of Land Rover owners and the family of Marcus. So that was really, really pleasing. And in Austria, that was in Austria, because in Hungary we actually just overnight over there. It's in Austria that Marcus' family is from. Or is it, hold on, Hungarian or Austrian? No, it's Hungarian. My bad. Sorry. Hungary. Then what did we do?
See, when you get to Europe, it all becomes a blur.
I think it was Austria, Germany. Yeah, it was like that. Austria, Germany. We fly through Germany. Well, as fast as Oxford would be happy to go.
we understand.
Well,
we understand.
It feels like flying. Trust me.
It does feel like
at the
flying.
terminal velocity of 42 miles per hour.
You really wonder if the hard stop is actually going to stay attached to Oxford. if when. I think it was Germany and France that the synchronous steering was really starting to not help us and to not want to cooperate with the drive. In Germany, we would have loved to meet up with the Land Rover community, but we had to be fast-ish because the boys in Turkmenistan had lost a wheel. We actually lost some time on our schedule, and we were away in Folkestone on the 14th of December. So every single day that had passed before the 14th was just a big question mark, because we didn't know if Oxford was going to actually be happy to do the drive until there. And we had commitments with Land Rover clubs and friends who we were meeting up with. So that means in France we met up in Paris with the family of Leopold, who's the director of production, and we also did beautiful pictures in front of the Eiffel Tower, recreation of what the pictures were 65 years ago.
Did you brew tea on the steps?
We tried really hard, but the cops didn't really want us there. But we tried really, really hard. We Alex and Nat had a lovely idea we had reproduction models of Oxford and Cambridge, and they actually took it and made a picture making it look like it was the two vehicles in real life size and a tiny Eiffel Tower behind it. So it was really, really, really nice.
Nice.
Yeah, Paris in Oxford is stressful.
More stressful than India.
Yes, because in India, the vehicles, they are powerful because they are old, but they can only go so fast. In Paris, you've got new vehicles that are very powerful, and people who drive like Parisian, which is, not going to say it's not good, but I'm not going to say it's great either. And then you've got all those scooters and weird Uber vehicles everywhere. That's rental scooters and small. Well, they look like little midgets on the road next to Oxford and Pal. Mm-hmm, you got to be careful for those ones that they, Oh yeah, Paris was fun, and in France we were welcomed by a Land Rover club, which was just lovely people. They were in Alsace, and they took us around their place, showed us, really, really nice food and drinks and just everything you need to feel at home. Well, it was France, but to feel at home in Europe. And then we went to Champagne. After being in Paris, we went to Champagne, where we met up with Sébastien, who is a Land Rover owner who has got a collection of Land Rover, which is just insane. I've never seen that many vehicles parked on two fields so close from each other. He's a true passionate.
You can't have too many.
Yeah, you can have to, but I genuinely had never seen that many vehicles in my life that close from each other on two fields. It's I don't know how many he had. He told me the number, but it was that much that I forgot how many. It was just insane. If you don't know Sébastien Land Vintage, look him up online, and he's a great character. And then we made it to Belgium, where I'm from, which was really nice. We arrived in Brussels and were invited to do the launch of the So British exhibition in one of Brussels' most, how do you say that? beautiful, exquisite, I don't know, places about cars, basically. And we were welcomed by so many Land Rover owners and their Land Rovers, truly passionate, just beautiful. So we introduced the So British exhibition and talked about the incredible journey that we were on, and just marvelous to see that many people who are just passionate by the same thing and who have read the book about the journey that you've just done. Well, somewhere the same journey, because we took different roads, but same start and finish.
and they'd have to read the book backwards too, I guess, to really get a sense of it.
That's true.
Backwards, I think it's a little bit like a book that you just have, like a night table book that you just go back to every single time you've got a question. I'm not going to say it's the Bible of overlanding, but it's close to it. And then we made it to Calais. And we overnight over there. On the 14th, our ferry is announced as delayed. And,
of course it is.
My gosh, this can't happen. So luckily, we actually came with the under the sea, the tunnel, because every single ferry was being delayed. And we couldn't afford to be delayed because we had a homecoming celebration with, I don't remember, I think it was something around 140 Land Rover waiting for us in Folkestone. Every single model you can imagine, and all the vintage ones, so all the World War Land Rovers were all lined up on the harbor arm. So with the drone pictures, you could just see those incredible vehicles, all with Oxford. Just very emotional day.
Therese-Marie, you had a missed opportunity. They flew Oxford and Cambridge across the channel originally on airplanes.
I promise we tried really hard to get it happen.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so you did try. All right, good to hear.
The thing is that I think it was a bit easier back then to get two cars that were from crazy people who wanted to drive from the most remote point of on Earth, on land with a vehicle that they were not, they trusted that vehicle, obviously, but they were not sure they would succeed, because Tim and his team really just wanted to do something that had, push it further, actually. It had never been done before. They just wanted to push it further. And they managed. So the 14 December 2019, after being 411 days on the road, we reached Folkestone Harbour Arm, and we made it to London that same night with a convoy of so many Land Rovers. England must have been proud that day, and we made it to the Grenadier pub where it all began.
Nice.
Superb.
That is quite the journey.
That's awesome.
You've had me rambling for a little while now, guys.
No, just a few minutes.
This is how this show works.
Is there a highlight for you? I know you've gone through all of that, but is there a moment that stands out for you?
Yes, absolutely. There is two in particular. The first is when I drove Oxford from the last bit of gray zone between China and Kyrgyzstan, and arrived in Kyrgyzstan in the middle of the night with nothing but that tiny little light in the window that we could see from the border. That was crazy, because we were coming from a hyper computerized country, which was China, and you arrive in that little border office, which is nothing like it. It's just like one big guy, and that one big guy is, you imagine one big bald guy with a kapshka on his head and a big bomber jacket, and it's very cold outside. When you speak, you've got that little air that's frosting in front of your frosting in front of your mouth, and you arrive, you see it in the distance, and all you hear is, when you turn on your radio, because obviously we've got radios, not really amateurs. You turn on your radio, and what happens is you hear Alex Bescoby, my friend, and that's it. You've got this is English. You've got really English communication. You actually can talk to someone without having to make a 3-word sentence. And then you arrive in that tiny little office, which is the border. And all you got to do is, you've got no scans or weird computerized system to go through. You literally, if the guy likes your face, you go through. If he doesn't like it, you don't go through. And that's as simple as that. And then, that moment where we had the vodka and the yak on arrival, because that was crazy. And the other very, very memorable moment is when I didn't have my visa. So Vladimir, our second guide, had to wait with me in at the office in the gray zone between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, and we hit the Pamir highway late in the night, and that was the most beautiful starry night I've ever seen in my life, because you had the whiteness of the mountains surrounding the Pamir highway. The Pamir highway is nothing like a highway. It's quite literally just a cement road. So it's not even tarmac, it's cement blocks and rectangles that form a road, and you see that the road is moving because of the terrain it's on. And you've just got that starry night, and it's really warm in the car, which is really nice, because at the moment that you put a foot outside, and we had another 3.5 hours of driving, you just freeze. It's not freezing to death, but it's definitely freezing. So yeah, those two moments were probably the most memorable for me. I made myself promise to come back to Kyrgyzstan, because we only stayed there for 24 hours, but it became really, really dear to my heart in that time.
And I want to know if what you had packed in the duffel bag, was that enough for the journey? It's
to the point. Oh my God, I was so proud of that one. I had packed enough clothing to never be cold, never be too warm. So just perfect. And the other thing I was really, really happy with is that I actually managed to, you guys are going to laugh at this. It's really just a girl thing, but I actually managed to pack one dress and one pair of heels, because we had still official appointments that we had to go to. And, me being a lady, I wanted to be presentable and not wear my expedition clothes, which were first of all, man clothing, because, obviously, you're going around the world, so you try to take care of your appearance in a way that's not going to be shocking for the people around you. In a nutshell, yes, it was enough.
Good.
Are you still involved with the promotion or marketing efforts as Oxford continued across North America and is now on its way to New Zealand? Are you involved with that at all?
I am afraid to say no. My mission as a digital consultant for so I had two hats to wear on that expedition. I was partly I was team member, and then on the other side I was working. And no, I am not anymore. So I'm following it from the distance, because when you meet Oxford once, you can't forget her. No, sadly I am not for North America, but I do know that the American team has been doing incredible communication, and I've seen a lot of pictures of Oxford and enthusiasts around her. So I'm not too worried. Let's put it that way.
So we'll have a story in the upcoming issue of Rover's magazine on the American or the North American portion of her trek, and also for John, for your listeners, Therese-Marie agreed to an interview, so we'll have portions of her commentary here, also as part of that lead article in the upcoming issue.
Cool.
Therese-Marie, you are fortunate that your trip occurred before the pandemic restrictions. You would have run into the same problems.
Well, you are absolutely spot on, Jeff. It's to the point that we were looking back in March, and we have got a WhatsApp group with the 8 of us, and we're like, holy smokes! Like, we made it through just before a world pandemic.
Yeah,
and obviously you can't plan that kind of thing. You're like Providence. That's amazing. No. Thank you. Let's put it that way. But yeah, we definitely just we realized we were lucky. We realized we were lucky, partly from obviously just taking that beautiful, beautiful piece of engineering around the world, but also just making it before the pandemic.
Very fortunate. Thank goodness.
So your first exposure to Oxford was probably when you got to Singapore, right?
So that was my first time seeing her. My first time driving her. It was not in Oxford, nor in Malaysia, nor in where was it? It was actually, I drove Oxford in. Did I drive it? I think I drove it in Burma. And if it was not, no, it was in India. It was in India.
Okay.
That's on the dirt road of India. That's how I got to know Oxford.
So what about Oxford did not? I'm trying to figure the words here. You had expectations of what the experience was going to be like. What's your impression now? You know, was Oxford different from what you expected, and how?
Well, I had been following a little bit what Adam had been doing on Oxford to get her to the condition that she was. In the beginning of the expedition, I was legally not allowed to drive Oxford because I was the insurance papers. It was not planned for me to be initially. On the expedition were not finalized for me because I was supposed to be in France, which was not the case. So I had a lot of expectations about Oxford, but expectations more in terms of noise. I was not too worried about how difficult it would be to drive her because I knew what it was to drive without power steering, for example, and I was aware of what it was to drive in synchromesh steering as well. What I found complicated is the bitter cold that went through between the joints of the car. That was one thing. That was something that I didn't. For some reason, my brain totally ignored that point. So I was equipped for it, but my brain just decided to not take it into account. And I have to admit that when we were in China, for example, or when we were driving in Tajikistan, which was quite humid, it was hard because you had the feeling. I'm sure you've felt that before. You had the feeling that the cold was biting your bones. You know, just making your bones feel like brittle. It's just, that was hard. The other thing I think
part of the Land Rover experience, I do believe.
I think so. Yeah, it's just that it's never getting that weirdly bitter cold in France.
Well, you need to get out more.
I do, but most of the time I'm climbing. I'm on climbing expeditions or hiking, and I did off-roading in when I was back at home, and I love off-roading in Romania, for example. Romania is just incredible for off-roading. The Carpathian Mountains.
Romania is incredible for on-roading too.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I have to say that the Carpathian Mountains and the dirt roads of Romania and what you get to see, which is little glimpses of life that you don't get to see anywhere else anymore because it's populations that are quite literally disappearing. So, and the only way for you to see them is if you hike up there, and then you have to be with a local, or if you just pass them by with your off-road vehicle. And most time you're going to stop by, you're going to buy them cheese because that's one of their only way of actually making an income. And you bring them sugar and oil and salt, for example, in the most remote villages, because quite often it's 3 old ladies that live there with, 3 cows and 2 sheep because their husband died of either illness, or sometimes just too much alcohol, sadly enough, or sometimes it's just that their husband were shepherds and it's such a hard job that they just passed from the difficulty of the job. So yeah, Romania is cold. Romania is beautiful. Is
that how you got into having what we call the Land Rover disease from hiking and climbing?
I think it reinforced it. I think it started more when I was off-roading in tractors. I'm coming from the Ardennes in Belgium, which is an important place for the Second World War, but it's also a place where it's it's complicated terrain because it's got highs and ups and downs and a lot of mud and a lot of weird rain, and it's not a rain season, but it's also not a rain season. So it's just weird. So I think that's where it comes from. And, when you work with horses, you have to know how to drive a vehicle, because either way, you got to go get cattle that's stuck or get your horses out of a complicated situation, whatever it is. You gotta know how to drive in dirty situations.
Well, you have important things to do. You need a Land Rover for that.
Oh my God, yes. My God. I wish sometimes, because I was driving a Massey Ferguson, like lovely tractor.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's the British experience too. So
I have to say that sometimes I would have preferred to have a not really waterproof canopy of a Land Rover than no canopy at all on a Massey Ferguson.
Yeah, I wouldn't call the canopy on a Land Rover waterproof. Water filtering, maybe.
Water filtering in Bangkok. My God, when we were in Thailand, we were drenched. We have never seen that much water in Oxford. I think there's a picture somewhere.
I'm convinced that when it's raining, it rains harder inside Oxford than it does outside.
Oh my God, we had to wear shower caps in Oxford.
Yeah, I believe it.
That's the least glamorous thing you can have. It's you don't look cool at all at that moment. You don't look like an adventurer. You just look like a guy with a shower cap on your head. It's just but you're so happy.
You're in Oxford, and that makes it cool no matter what.
I think there's a photo somewhere where it was raining so hard in Oxford that it was quite literally liters that were coming down through the open roof, because you can slide the roof open in Oxford. Oh my gosh. There's a picture where we had the three of us with an umbrella and tape, and I'm like on the top of Oxford taping down a piece of plastic just to avoid that every single, like, that would be just water at our feet, because there was that much rain that we wouldn't have been able to stay kind of dry-ish, because you never dry in Oxford.
No.
When it rains, you never dry. So that was fun. That was really fun.
I think Oxford could have benefited from a set of windshield wipers on the inside of the windshield.
Yeah, and a heater that was actually working in China, for example. For example, I mean, if it's not asking for too much, just... It was really, really cold in China. Really cold. Tibet is... it's something you've got to experience. It's a dry cold, but it really penetrates to your bone. It's hard.
Oxford was not the first Land Rover you drove. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. I had been driving. I was more familiar with off-roading as such than as solely with Land Rovers. And I had been driving Land Rovers before, but not that many. I think 2 or 3, and it was never a Land Rover that actually had seen mud at any point in their life. Suddenly,
really,
that was a bit of They were beautiful vehicles and of incredible technology when they didn't touch water or mud or dirt or sand. I think I just really started loving Land Rover properly when I got past the fact that I just really loved the aspect of a good old Defender, and that I just drove Oxford in Tonglu, in one of the highest roads in Darjeeling. It's that was really the moment we like, oh my God, this is really fun. Other than that, you just don't know what you're saying. It's like, you say you like a Land Rover, and you ask the person, do you actually drive it in dirt? Did you actually,
Driving any Land Rover in Darjeeling, I think, gives you ample credit.
It's beautiful. Did you know, actually, fun fact about Darjeeling, did you know that they actually put little pieces of stones in the road, in the tarmac of the road, so you actually can go up? So you've got little lines of stone. I'll try to find a picture and send it to you so you see exactly what I'm saying. What I mean, it's they put lines of little rocks. It looks like little sharp pebbles, so the car, because it rains so much, can actually have grip on the road.
Creates traction.
Yeah.
It's impressive to see it. I had never seen anything like that before. And the roads over there are really steep and very, very turny. So I'll try to find a picture and send it over to you.
So let's talk about your fleet. What do you own? What do you drive? Have you ever owned a Land Rover, and are you going to own a Land Rover? Answer those questions in any order you want.
So my fleet is, first thing, I never owned a Land Rover, but it's high on the list, and hopefully 2021 has got something nice in the books for me. I'm basically looking for a Defender.
There you go.
Go for a 110, and I am a person who travels, and I travel a lot with my van. So I've got big vehicles. So for example, right now I'm daily driving Iveco Daily 35S12, which is
right on.
It's 5 meters 60 long, and it's a van. So I transformed it, converted everything inside, and I'm traveling with it. The thing is that, you know, when you like Land Rovers and when you like traveling and adventures, and I'm climbing as well. I'm doing a lot of climbing. I'm learning to fly, you know, that kind of thing. You always need an off-roading vehicle. So right now I'm owning my third van, and I'm in a real search of a Land Rover, of a 110. I've got a few things that I know that I want in it, a few things that I know I don't want in it. I've got a few things that I am open to think about. But yeah, mainly I think I'm going to go for a normal 110, so not an ambulance or anything, and convert it inside so it can be an adventure vehicle and push my travels more, really.
A proper Land Rover.
A proper Land Rover, of course.
There you go.
You go big or you go.
That's right.
I have to confess, guys, that I love Land Rovers a little bit too much.
That's not possible.
I promise. I sat in one from Singapore to London. You gotta call it love, right?
Right, but it's impossible to love them too much. That's not possible.
That's true. You're right.
Too much is almost enough.
Therese-Marie, thanks you very much for coming on the show and talking about Last Overland and your experience with Land Rovers. I hope you get your 110 soon.
Thank you so much, John, for having me. And I was so pleased to be able to share all these stories with you. Thank you so much.
You are quite welcome. And folks can find you at Therese-Marie-Becker.com.
Exactly. They can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Pinterest, anything they'd like to get in touch with me. Please do feel free to reach out. I'll be very happy to have a chat.
Thanks again. And I hope 2021 is better for you than 2020. Well, actually, for everybody.
Let's hope it's not worse. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly. Thanks again, Therese-Marie.
Thank you.
This has been show number 94. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to Morgan, Harold, and Dixon. Thanks again, gentlemen, for coming on to the program.
Yeah, no sweat.
No problem. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Did your dog want to make a presence before we go?
She's sound asleep. She's 14 now.
And also thanks to Therese-Marie Becker for discussing her involvement in Last Overland. And don't forget the One True Packs for his continued production support. You can visit our website, Centresteer.com, to listen to previous shows and for show notes, which have links to stories discussed in today's podcast. To have the podcast automatically delivered to your podcast application, please subscribe. You can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, and voicemail. You can directly support the show at patreon.com/Centresteer, and that's in the British spelling, CENTRE. Buy a t-shirt, sticker, or buy us a tea. Click on Store on the menu of our webpage. We're part of the 4x4 Radio Network, and I invite you to check out the other 4x4 related shows at 4x4radionetwork.com. Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover. Click on voicemail on the website and let us know. The next voicemail will receive a Centresteer t-shirt. That's your incentive for listening to the end of the podcast. Until next time, I ask you to share the show with one other Land Rover enthusiast.
And you may now resume your important things.
No chiropractor needed.